You'll want to definitely pay a special attention to cognitive behavior therapy. That is the evidence-based approach that gets reimbursed most readily.
Yeah.
So you'll want to have a working knowledge of that, cognitive behavior therapy.
Yeah, I figured because she already said like all your notes basically come from this theory,
Cognitive behavior?
yeah, well, you say, because those are how you get reimbursed. So you gotta,
Oh,
so basically whether you're doing something else or not, you have to write your notes based on this.
I love this
Yeah.
teacher. So
Yeah.
she is practical minded.
Right. Because you can do Gestalt, you can do existentialism, but when you
Right.
write your notes, they have to be
right.
from
When you
this
fill out the insurance
theory.
form.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
No, I think there's going to actually be
Oh.
quite a bit of training in note taking because
So
for one thing, you don't want to put notes in there that might hurt the client, right? And so you have to be careful about that whole thing too.
What you have to be careful about is that they have a right to the notes.
The clients do.
The clients do.
But so does the courts. The courts have the right to the notes
and
too.
that comes to the fore most often
Yeah.
in divorce cases when there's custody questions and the court will order. And when the court orders, you got to give it to them. When a lawyer orders, you can push back. But when the judge says you got it.
Right.
Even though the way to push back is that you're violating their confidentiality, which ruins your therapeutic alliance. Is this taping?
Yeah, we're taping. Right
Oh, good. Which ruins your therapeutic alliance. And so what you're defending, since the premier ethical standard that reigns over everything, and everything falls from this one standard. And anytime you can demonstrate that you are in the service of this standard, feeding this standard, protecting this standard, you can't go far away. That standard is the welfare of your client. Now, it's really fascinating when you're doing forensic work, who's your client?
Mm-hmm.
The lawyer that hired you, the courts, the patient, society? It's a fascinating question, and I'll share with you the reason I stayed with this. My first job was in a forensic clinic in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I stayed with it was for that question. I loved that question. Yeah, right. To whom do I owe allegiance?
Yeah.
And that was back in those days. There was no literature or research on any of that. I was left to think, wow, I'm important thinking about this question. This question matters. This is
the
interface of law and psychology is real world.
Mm-hmm.
So that really hooked me in. I got to tell you.
Yeah.
To this day.
Yeah, you still find it really interesting.
Well, look at me. I haven't been this animated in a year and a
half. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. Like, whose interests am I meant to be serving here? And there could be multiple interests, right? Which makes it more paradoxical.
It almost usually is. But
right.
When you're a therapist, the 800-pound gorilla is your patient.
Right.
And whatever is even when you don't know what you're doing, think, what's in the best interest of my patient? And you can't go far wrong. What your professor is emphasizing is fucking write it down in your process notes, your session notes.
Right.
Because if it isn't written down and you're in court for any reason, it didn't happen.
Right.
So you cover your ass at all times is what your professor is emphasizing. And you need to learn how to write notes that would stand up. Saying that, I have to tell you, my experience in more than 40 years is that psychologists don't get into this to protect themselves in a court of law. And so almost all psychologists write shabby, inadequate notes. If a psychologist ever gets called up for malpractice, they're fucked. I've never been in a case where a psychologist has written adequate notes, and it's always impeachable, the notes that a psychologist writes. I mean, they never, for example, someone comes in and tells you casually, I've had thoughts about hurting myself. Fucking red flags better go off in your head. Because if that person down the line ever kills themselves, your notes are going to be fodder in the court. And what did you do when they said that? Did you do any testing? Did you consult with a supervisor? Therapists are allowed to be wrong clinically.
Mm-hmm.
They are not allowed to be less than thorough.
Mm-hmm.
And so you didn't send him to a psychiatrist for medication consult. If you can explain why, you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
You can be wrong, but it was an option that you ruled out.
Right.
But if you don't send him and don't note why, and they try and hurt themselves, even if they don't succeed, you're in trouble if those notes get
right.
So there should be a course in how to write great notes, and I can counsel you about that.
Yeah.
When the time comes in real time with real people.
Yeah.
You'll ask, what do I say or what do I write, and I'll tell you what you have to do.
Right. No, I get the feeling that they're, I think that on the one hand, well, I said, I don't feel like I'm learning as much theory as I would like at this point.
You're a rookie.
I'm a rookie, and at the other side, I do get the feeling that they are pretty focused on. I mean, even right out of the gate, the quizzes that we're getting on each of these chapters, I get the sense they come right out of like the final exam I have to take 3 years from now, right? And so they're like,
or the licensing exam,
and because they're just basically saying we're preparing you.
Right.
For licensure. That's what we're here to do.
And I can tell you.
So we're everything we do is, and then also your liability.
They're doing the right job for you.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, they're going to be more. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a whole section on note taking.
Yeah,
because
but not only that, there'll be a whole thing on ethics.
No, there's a course on ethics, which I'm actually supposed to take pretty early on, which I haven't taken yet. But
well, wait till you get some traction.
But and it is that whole when do you disclose, and I mean, I guess it's this whole process of you have to tell the client at the beginning in some way, shape, or form. There are some circumstances under which I need to disclose.
The other giant thing in
tell you about them.
The other giant thing in therapy is you need to get informed consent.
Right, informed consent.
And that needs to be signed and understood. And so
right. That there are circumstances like if I determine you're a threat to yourself or someone else,
or if you know of ongoing child abuse or elder abuse,
then I am obliged to do something about it.
But that's a very heavy thing.
Yeah.
What do you do? Who do you call a police? Do you call a hospital? What do you do? And you'll lose the patient if you do any of those things. Mm-hmm. So is that in your patient's best interest? You have a good alliance with them, and even though they've signed the informed consent and they disclose something because they're in the zone with you, that's a very hard decision you have to make.
Or I can just see these nuances around someone saying like, I'm thinking, I've had these terrible thoughts about someone, and sometimes I imagine myself hurting them or something like that. And then, so is this person has an intent to hurt them, or are they just thinking about hurting them?
That's where the protocol of a questionnaire comes in.
Right.
Do you have a plan? Have you ever done it before?
Yeah.
Do you drink a lot? Do you have a weapon at home?
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole nother course.
Yeah, but now you're shifting from a therapeutic session to assessing whether this person has a potential of harm.
That's right, and that's your obligation, and it's too fucking bad.
Yeah.
But the law has evolved since a famous case, Tarasoff, in 72, California, where the Supreme went to the Supreme Court, and they said, to make a very long story short, therapists have a duty to warn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a subsequent opinion was a duty to warn and to protect. then that's not anything you go into graduate school for, or anything you want to do when you have a patient in your office. But you have to suspend that, and these very rare. I mean,
Well, I think it
I've
really
done my
depends on
whole.
your circumstance. I mean, one of the friends of mine who just went through her program is now practicing. She worked for a while in, I don't know which one, but some sort of clinic that deals with lower income people and
Yes,
that kind of
yes.
stuff. And in those situations, there's quite a lot of domestic violence that
That's
goes
right.
on. And so she got pulled into court a few times while she was there. And this is partly why she said, I'm going to private practice, because I don't want to get pulled into
Well,
court.
that has its
you know?
own. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That has its own risks.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in a group practice or with an agency, they're the ones on the front lines. They're the ones whose liability is at stake, because they're supposed to, they control and oversee you.
Mhm.
But in private practice, you're naked.
Right, right. But I think you also have more control over the clients that you have. You know,
The client you take.
the clients you take on. So,
Well, that's a
Any case.
luxury at some point.
Yeah.
You're not going to go out and hang out a shingle. It's like opening up a dry cleaner. You need to get business. You need to advertise. It's a business,
right.
which is also a very interesting feature.
Mhm.
You wear more than one hat that are incompatible.
Right. Yes, you're right.
How
Well,
can
I
you
mean,
be
I've
a
dealt with
business?
that my
Yeah,
whole
people
life.
come
Yeah.
to you at their most vulnerable, at their weakest, at their riskiest, and there needs to be a business relationship established that is antithetical to why they're there, and alien to what you're doing, what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Mhm.
You don't want to be a fucking businessman when you're opening your office to help, but you have to find a way that's compatible with the person you are to do that.
Yeah. Well, honestly, that's been something that I've been working with.
Oh, right.
For a
In your
long
work
time,
for a long
because
time.
my work for a long time is
Right.
always this sort of balancing of how do you bring the clients in, how do you keep the clients, but also how do you serve them, and how do you take care of them? And so
And you have the option, and it's probably brilliant, to share with them that you're uncomfortable with it, that it's a problem.
Mhm.
I don't like it, and we have to do it.
Yeah.
And so you make them a partner in it.
Right. You realize we
It's
need to get through
It's
this
very disarming.
aspect
and
of
they
this
can-
relationship so that we can get to this other aspect of the
And
relationship.
it's disarming, and they can identify, they can put themselves in those shoes superficially.
Sure.
So they know.
I mean, and they inherently understand, like they're coming
I know,
in
but nobody
for
talks to them
service,
about it.
and
nobody
the service
talks
is going
about
to be
it.
paid for somehow. So yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah. But you're
It's
right.
a conflict
It is a conflict.
that needs to be diffused with sunshine.
Yeah. Yeah, just to be sort of talked about in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, in that part, I think I'm pretty good at understanding paradox. Like there can be conflicting agendas going on.
Well, that's what I
at the
think
same
about when I
time.
think about you going through this.
Mhm.
You have a tremendous advantage in that you've lived and you've been doing this in a very same thing in a different way. And this isn't going to teach you what to do or how to do it. It's just going to be an added arrow in your quiver. And you can continue doing what you're doing, but in an expanded way.
Mhm.
You're not opening up
more,
a shingle
with
and
more tools in the toolbox. basically.
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, but also some, I think constraints and, understanding, like that, in a professional
Right.
psychotherapy, there are more, honestly, just more boundaries to
I see you as finding a
fun.
unique way to meld the two
Mhm.
things that because it'd be a shame for you to ignore or abandon what you're brilliant at, just to compartmentalize a new something or other. Absorb the new something or other into who you are and what you do. You're too old and experienced to
forsake
to forsake that.
Mhm.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you need to find a way to incorporate it. You're not there the way everyone else is. You're not there to hang out a shingle. You're there because this is going to enrich what you can offer, which will expand the people to whom you're able to offer it and increase what you can charge for it.
Mhm. Yeah, more skills, more tools.
Yeah.
Cool.
I
Well,
mean,
we'll see where it takes me.
what did you and I have to sell other than our good brains and our experience and training?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're not stonemasons.
Yeah. Anyway, it is an interesting journey. I mean, I'm glad to be on it and grateful and busy. So, okay, I've got a lot
Well, that's the
going
best
on.
piece.
Yeah.
That's the best piece. I find
Definitely.
myself on the other end of that spectrum where I've got more idle time than I'm happy with, and it's a corrosive. It can be a corrosive thing,
Yeah.
but I'm forced into it with my limitations. So it's a new landscape for me, and I'm trying. My struggle is I'm trying to. Wow, that's a segue.
Mm-hmm. Good segue though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my struggle is I'm trying to find um, what the steady state is for me. What's I mean, over the last 14 months, as you know, you don't know, but actually, I've talked about my physical welfare and tendency to and neglect thereof. And it's been a long time since the
Since we've
last
been
one
here.
of these.
Yeah.
Um,
Probably been over a year, maybe. It's been a while.
yeah,
Yeah. So.
I'm 98 years old now. I know. I know. I fucking look great, but I got my aches and pains.
Yeah.
So, this is all dynamic and still becoming for me.
Mhm.
All these multiple medical things that are independent of each other and yet are converging
Sure.
in a way to limit me. And I'm coming to, I want to hurry up and find out what do I need to accept now? What's given and what can still improve and where am I? And in thinking about this with all this time I have on my hand, because as you know, I have to lie down a lot. I and I can't explain it. I seem to be at peace with it. And what I've realized, I think, is all these things that I thought I learned and knew, I did learn and I do know.
Mhm.
This idea of suffering being the gap between expectation and reality. And this is, I tried to impart this directly or indirectly with my patients since I've learned the truth of it. The larger that gap, the more the suffering, and you're not going to change the reality, so you have to change your expectations. I come into this with a very narrow gap. It happened naturally. And so what I've discovered is if you know that, you don't have to do it. If you know that, you're there.
Mhm.
That's the simple truth. If you fucking know something, you're there already.
Right.
Or you don't have to. So people come in for therapy and you try to guide them and use where they are to um, help them see something else or something more. Um, they come away thinking, I got to do this, I got to do that. No, no. You just have to be aware.
Yeah.
You just have to accept
Right.
and know it. So whatever the fuck it is, be with it.
Mhm.
First of all, dead tomorrow.
Yeah.
All of your hand wringing going
Yeah.
up to Maine and all that. Here you are. This is it.
Mhm. Yeah, we're just
And
here.
so, just to put a ribbon on it, I'm in this place that's unhappy. My runway has gotten very short, I think. I really don't expect, I mean, I don't know how I'm going to die or when,
But you're gonna.
but I'm gonna. And the great, you know,
Just
the
like
Woody,
me.
right.
Yeah.
And you assholes.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah.
And Woody Allen had a great line. He said, I'm not afraid of dying. I just don't want to be there when it happens, which is really kind of profound. I mean, I don't want to die because I can't breathe and sort of drown here in my bed or whatever. But I'm in this peaceful place, even though I've got
A lot of
great,
stuff going on.
great limitations and a certain amount of pain, which I really just consider discomfort. But
Yeah.
so I don't know. It's like an epiphany. It's like, oh, I don't have to meditate and do. I'm there.
Mhm.
I don't have to do anything. When you get the truth, and so it's really gratifying to me that I've been preaching the truth, not knowing it firsthand.
Right.
And
that
so
whole thing about the gap between
and
expectation
so have
reality.
you.
Yeah.
Which is why we have galvanized so readily immediately.
Mhm. Yeah,
We
we
both
sort of
know that.
innately know this.
We know that,
Right.
even though we doubt it.
And that really my only choice. I mean, what we tend to do is we struggle with reality, right? We say, if I can just
Yes.
figure out how to fix this or fix this person or fix this or that,
Or
get this,
if only.
then I can be happy.
Right.
Right. It's
Right.
so pervasive, and it's like,
Right.
and it's right.
Right.
It's right here. It's like your brain wants to go there and, figure it out, and yet that's not going to do it.
No.
And so it's like realizing that on a deep level is a
yes.
is a
And those few who realize it, even though you can't trust it. I mean, even Mick Jagger saying Jesus' moment of doubt and pain. Even Jesus had doubt and pain.
Sure.
But he knew.
No, he knew it was all coming and going.
In a very limited way, I know a great deal about very little. And the things I know and my criteria for knowing, when I teach, I'm going off on a tangent. You don't mind.
It's okay, no.
When I teach,
we're here to talk.
one of the first sentences out of my mouth, no matter what course it is, I ask my students, if a tree falls in a forest and there's no one there to hear it. Now, everybody's heard that philosophical question. And then I ask them, what's the next line? And everybody says, does it make a sound? Mm-hmm. No, that's not the philosophical last line. The last line is, do you know if it makes a sound? And it requires you to decide what you accept for knowledge. Now, you can't be wrong. You either accept that it makes a sound because you reason it, or you say you're an empiricist. I don't know it makes a sound. I don't know the sun's going to rise. I don't know until I experience it. Yes, both are right. But your criteria for knowing something is huge. That's huge.
Right.
And so
whether you can use inference or not.
That right. Whether you reason it or you have to know it. Mm-hmm. Now the hardcore scientists, they run their experiments, and I don't want to get in. That's way off the beaten path. But certainly in the behavioral sciences, I would put science in quotes because you can't operationalize.
It's kind of like that electricity experiment. Like I could look at that light and say, "Oh, there's electricity coming out of that plug because that light is on right now."
You reason it.
I reason it. Or I could stick my finger in the socket, and then
that's exactly right.
What I did when I was 3 years old with my mom.
That's a great example.
My mom saying, "Don't stick your finger in that socket. Don't stick." And then of course I stick my finger in the socket. Now I know what electricity is.
It's the wet paint sign.
It's like, oh, that's what electricity is. Oh, okay, yeah, it's kind of painful. I probably want to avoid that in the future.
Right. That's one trial learning.
Yeah. But yeah.
So I'm in this place of finding out that I know.
Right. Well, I mean, I imagine it happens because you have to do the hand wringing and then do an experiment. Does the hand wringing help? You know, and so, and then you realize this hand wringing is making me miserable, and it's not reducing the gap between my reality and my expectation.
That's when I go to my breath,
yeah,
which, because as I've said to you a million times, the simpler the fucking explanation, the closer to the truth you are. So if you get rid of the hand wringing and all the thoughts and everything else, and you get to something as basic as
your breathing.
Now, all of you out there who witnessed that, all two of you, you probably if you were really watching and plugged in, you probably vicariously felt a tinge of relief when I did that. Imagine if you did that, and that was only one breath. Think of how you can interrupt your anxieties or your fears or your ruminations or your OCD or whatever it is. If you can interrupt it, yes, it'll come back, but it'll have to start over again. And it's not going to cascade down to where it ordinarily would. So as something as basic as that. And then you can get more sophisticated with meditation and yoga.
And things. I mean, I was just thinking the other day about just how, something that Amrit Desai taught me about.
Something who?
Amrit Desai, who was the founder of Kripalu. He said, if you want to be happy, there's one thing you need to do. And that is...
Wait a minute, I'm getting a pen.
Yeah. If you want to be happy, there's one thing you need to do. And that is to bring yourself into the present moment. You need to get present, because all of that past thinking and forward thinking is the machination, basically. Even if it's pleasant.
Right.
Even if it's pleasant.
Right.
Okay, this is the important thing. Even if it's pleasant, thinking about the past and thinking about the future will lead you towards suffering. And because you get attached
to
now, those,
that was pleasant, and it's not pleasant now.
Right. And so it's like it will eventually lead to unpleasant thoughts. Because again, if you're thinking about something pleasant in the future, you're going to stop machinating about how to recreate that whole thing. And then there's going to be these times where it doesn't show up the way you would like it. And you're going to be back into some form of suffering. But if you just keep pulling yourself back into what's happening for me right now, what am I feeling? What am I breathing? What's happening? Like just this experience right here, right now. And then you can start to lower. The goal is to
be with that, to be that way without effort, without thinking, oh, I've lost track, or I got to go back. You're going to lose track. Things are going to intrude. You're never going to be in the present for very long. Unless you're, the Dalai Lama, and I have my doubts about him, which we've shared, who I love. So you can't expect that you will get to that place and stay there. And if you get to that place, there will be tremendous relief. And the longer you can stay there, or the more times you can get there, the better off you're going to be.
The more at peace and happier you're going to be, because what you end up doing is it is a discipline at first. It's like practicing the piano or anything else.
It's simple and difficult.
Right, simple and difficult. So it is a practice. But then, like practicing the piano or a language, you start to get facile. You start to get, and you can start to do it without thinking.
Malcolm Gladwell, 20,000. The Beatles didn't fall into it. They practiced 20,000 hours.
So you practice noticing when you're machinating about the past, or fantasizing about the future, or fantasizing about the past, or whatever.
Wringing your hands.
And then you pull yourself back into this present moment, which then maximizes your present, which is all it is real. All it is real is. So then what happens is your present moments become more rewarding. And so you're not spending all this energy.
That's right.
Like what happened yesterday and what might happen tomorrow. You're getting better and better at maximizing your present existence.
And more,
whether it's pleasant or not, but you're still maximizing it
whether it's pleasant or not.
Of your awareness and your ability to just even enjoy difficult moments. What the really interesting thing will be that shit will happen.
Wow, this is interesting.
And you'll be like, wow, this is interesting. You know, as opposed to, oh my God, shit is happening. What am I going to do now?
That's exactly where I am right now. Holy shit. I've been going through this. This has been, there's been decline over 14 months. Old, and the runway's getting shorter. And I swear to God, I'm not past thinking, wow.
This is incredible.
This is how it goes.
Right. Yeah. Well, do you remember once we had the conversation where, and I hope this doesn't, offend or anything, but where I said like, oh, I want to know what it's like to die. I just don't know what I want to be dead. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Which again is not, it sounds weird or irrational.
It's not weird. I've been there.
But this whole notion of, because life, I'm sure, and for you, it's getting more poignant. It's just going to be, because as you start to feel, whether it's true or not, about your runway shortening or whatever.
Of course it's true.
And, well, the runway's shortening for all of us. But what I get this feeling when you
say
that
runway is short.
Accelerating.
Yes, I'm perceiving the shortness of it.
Right. So you're perceiving like maybe, you thought it was out here, but now you might be perceiving it's getting closer.
Let me put it this way. I'm not exactly worried for myself about the effects of climate change.
Right. This is going to be somebody else's problem. Yes.
My grandchildren, which is bad, but
right. No, I understand.
I'm not going to have to stockpile cans of food.
No, you're not. But we can start to just feel more and more present and available for that process. And from that, we just learn.
That's the lesson. That's the lesson. That's the discipline.
Mm-hmm. That's the discipline.
And everybody knows that. Actors talk about it. Philosophers talk about it. Gurus talk about it. You can read about it. The texts are 3,500 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same truth.
Right.
Yes, it's only words to us if we're not immersed in exploring. It's just, be in the moment. Okay, thank you, check.
Right. But it's a disciplined practice, and the runway's getting shorter for all of us. Right?
You have to live it.
Yeah.
And that's what I've discovered. Surprisingly, at this point in my life, is that I have been living it because I'm getting it without acting. I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, whoa. I'm here to report from the next world. That's the truth. This is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's I don't know. Cynics would think, oh, you're just rationalizing. Come on. I'm in this business 4 years. I'm pretty good at separating out who I am in all of this, and
rationing or denying,
and what the truth is. There's no facts. There's only truth. As the great rock and roll critic Lester Bangs wrote, there are no facts.
So let me ask you something. What's it like when you're with your family?
That's a great question, especially since I've been with them all lately.
Mm-hmm.
Like California.
What's it like for you with this awareness of your shortening runway and spending time with your family?
That's a great question. I'm really glad you asked it. First and foremost, I lament in real time that my physical limitations show up, so that I can't participate in everything I used to. I can't get up the stairs back and forth after my grandkids. I can't go out and play. On a rare occasion, they all have to go out to a meal and I can't make it. And so first and foremost, I lament that. And they are very accepting of that. And I don't know how they, I don't know how they interpret it. I think it's because, this is what happens to an old man, and this is what's happening to him, and we absorb it. And they all have expressed to me separately, well, not my grandchildren, my sons, and to a lesser extent, my daughters-in-law, who I consider my daughters, who those families are the greatest, have expressed to me how it, I don't know, hurts them, or how, I don't want to use the word sad, but how unhappy it makes them to see that this is happening to me, and that they want, and it's like they want to help or do something to fix it, and they know that's not possible. So they have accepted it and included it. So when everyone's upstairs talking, and I ordinarily would go up and be among them, and I have to stay downstairs because it's just because I really had enough. They understand and they go on with their lives, and that's really okay. So how else is it for me? So that's the most important thing. Is
you
my
lament
family.
To yourself. You don't lament to them. Do you lament to them? You say,
no.
This sucks and I can't.
Oh no! I tell
that.
them in one way, shape, or form every day. I mean this. Life is good.
Mm-hmm.
They're healthy and happy. They've got great families, good jobs. They're standing on their own 2 feet. Everything's working for them, and I'm so proud of them and happy that life is good. That's when they ask me, I just tell them I'm good to this. It's fine. I'm great. I'm good, and I mean it. It's what we were talking about before. I'm in this place where the gap is like this. I swear to God.
Mm-hmm.
And
so when you're saying
we've
that to them,
it.
You feel totally authentic. You're not.
Oh, yes. That's a good interpretation.
Well, I mean, because you share with me these lamentations, so they're part of it. But you're saying you keep this mostly to yourself, right?
But I've moved past that. I've moved to this place where I realize, okay, I'm not getting back to where I was. 6 months ago, I thought, well, all of this will clear up, and
Isn't that an interesting phenomenon? Almost everybody, I think, goes through that. That whole thing, like, when I get back to normal, true. It's like I've heard so many people who will have fairly significant things happen to them, and they say, "Well, in a few months I'll be back to normal." Yes. And you're like, "No, that's not going to happen."
That was I. That's exactly what I thought.
It's so
until you realize
there's a new normal.
Like
happening.
Your car says, recalculating. It's like
there's a new normal happening, and I think one of the things,
and that's what I find so interesting. Oh, so this is what it is.
But I think one of the things that may be still lingering with you, again, even though the gap is really small, is there's still this desire to know, right? To know where is this going to land? Where is this new normal going to happen? Because it's still
I need to know what I have to adjust to,
and that's meeting, as you know, is a problem.
Yes.
So
yes,
meeting is a problem. So as opposed
to, I need to know?
I mean, you want to, which is totally.
I'm willing to wait to see how it unfolds.
But you don't have a choice, Norman.
I know.
I'm willing to. Like, okay, I'll wait and see. Like you're acquiescent.
Yeah, like I'm still in charge. You mean?
Right. You don't have it. So the question is, how do we get? So that's that little remnant of the gap, right?
Yes. So that never is like that.
Exactly. So it's still there, and that's totally normal. I think that desire to have some terra firma is deep in us,
and it also comes from my dear friends who say, what's new, and when are we going to do this, and they all think that I'm going to rebound in some way, but I guess they're going to learn more slowly than I.
It's just so scary. I think that
scary.
I think it's scary that whole notion of, oh yeah, we'll be out playing golf again next week or in a month or whatever. It's people's they placate their anxiety.
Oh, so they're avoiding by lying to themselves.
But it's denial at some point. We don't know, Norman. We just don't know. We know.
I'm in that place. So, I am in that place. I got my eyes open, waiting to see.
I know, but it's hard. I give you a lot of credit for the courage,
gotta
I think it
tell you,
really
it's not
takes.
hard. It's not
I still
hard.
think it takes courage to actually face the no floor. Like I don't know where the
I
floor
gotta
is.
tell you,
You know?
maybe I'm just totally lying to myself, and maybe I'm just really good at sealing it over and denying. But I am. Here I am. Let's see.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid. Um, there are things that could happen that I definitely don't want to happen that I would think about, I'm getting out of here. If I ever wound up like in a wheelchair permanently, I'm out.
Gonna wheel it down to the river.
I know enough drug dealers that I could,
Yeah.
So so far, I'm unhappy about my limitations.
Right.
And when you talk about lamentation, I think about, the fun I used to have, and the freedom I had to go and do and run that I don't have anymore.
Right.
I think about how attractive I used to be that I'm not anymore. That's actually a big one for me.
Yeah, I can empathize with that.
Um,
You're still pretty good looking though.
For 96, I understand. But I'm not afraid. Now, it could be that I'm really good at denial, but I don't think so. I'm more curious about where this lands and what my steady state will be once all of this is as managed as it can be, which it isn't yet.
Right.
But I'm getting there.
Yeah.
And it's starting to coalesce in a shape that's like, okay, I still be able to do, get out and do and see patients and like that. And I still have my brain. 100% I have my brain.
Thank goodness, right?
What?
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I recently, one of the landmarks in my life is I recently had to stop umpiring.
Yeah.
Which I did for 20 years and loved every second of.
That was awesome.
And that was, and I will always be grateful to you that you came to watch, to see the theater of umpiring.
Yes.
And I had to stop, and some guys run into some of these kids now have families of their own that used to be, the 12-year-old that I called out when he was safe. But that to me was like, I thought, well, at least I will always be able to do this. There's no way I could have to stop doing this. And so recalculating, it's like, fuck you.
Those physical limitations, right? They're tough.
And it teaches you how to accept. If you fight it, you're a dead person. It teaches you, okay, I've aged out of it. Okay, what do we have left here? I missed the shrimp boat. What's left on the smorgasbord table?
Yeah.
Until it's seaweed and dirt, I'm in it.
Yeah. I really just appreciate the process that you're going through, and that in of the post being present, being with the uncertainty, and also just being honest about you've said a few times now, like I just kind of want to know where that stable place will be, and I really appreciate that. And at the same time, I feel like we just don't know, Norman. I mean, again, you may hit a stable place for a day, and then something else can happen, right? And I think it reminds me of people.
So maybe the stable place is instability. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's where I'm going.
What you're saying is it's always instability.
It's always instability, and it's an illusion. Otherwise, I think it's like when I think about people. Sometimes I'm not always saying this, but thinking about they getting married, right? Why do people get married? Because they have this. Maybe they're in love, right? Which
Be careful with your because.
Okay, well, what I'm thinking about is that there's often, I just run into someone who have this notion of what being married will be like, right? what may
deal with
being
that in your
married
life,
will
the
be like. And,
expectations.
you know, okay, so then we will live together and
and
we
have
will
children
have
and have a white
children
picket fence
and it turns out to be quite different than that for most people.
almost always.
Just FYI, it turns out to be quite different than that.
There's-
But there's this notion at the beginning
Right.
of stability, I think, is part of it. Like I'm
Yes.
going to be with somebody now. I
Yes.
can stop dating. I hate dating, all that kinds of stuff.
Right.
And I'll have some security because if I get sick,
And
this
the
other
women
person will be there.
especially who were inculcated with the expectation that they'll be married and have children and a white picket fence, et cetera, et cetera. Although
Yeah, I think men think, you know, have their own set of expectations too. I mean,
it's not children and white picket fences, I don't think, as a rule.
I think they're buying into that to some extent. You know, if you live in a
It's
certain
partnership
area
and-
with certain socioeconomic expectations, you are
Oh well,
you're
yes.
buying into that.
That's sort of social inclusion. Yeah. Yeah.
However, it turns out to be for most people way more challenging than
Turns
than
out to
that.
be whatever the
And
truth
so
is.
I just
with-
I'm trying to compare your desire for a kind of like to know with someone who's maybe 20s or 30s or 40s saying, well, I want to marry this person so I know. They want to know something.
And I think the
You
20s
know?
and 30s, you think you can control the outcome. You can control
Right.
where you wind up.
Mm-hmm.
And to some extent, I don't know, 31% maybe that's true. But, you know, 69% you control Jack.
Right. Well, I think that this notion again, this desire, and I've used this analogy a couple times now, knowing where the terra firma is, where's the floor, so that I can build off of that. And I think there's a lot of good things about marriage in that regard, because you do have this notion that we are going to build something together, and I'll build something more robust and enjoyable if I do it with someone else. And so,
and it's not anybody else.
Right.
It's someone who can do this with you or this with you, where your strengths match their weaknesses and vice versa.
Right. But
and
you still kind of need that floor in which to build the house on, right? And
yes,
I think that desire in us is really powerful. And it's kind of based on an illusion that things will stay, that floor is always going to be there. And we know, again, with marriage, that floor isn't always going to be there. But that's the foundation of our psyche.
The way you configure
the way you think it was going to be there, right? But at the foundation of our psyche, and this is what I'm trying to get at and ask you about, is based on these sort of like foundations in some way. And what if there isn't any real foundation? Do we just go crazy? Do we go insane?
Foundation. No,
okay.
I think what happens naturalistically is that you learn little by little in acceptable units, acceptable chunks. Oh, that's quicksand. Oh, that's not a foundation, that's fragile. You learn little by little the truth just by living. And if you get it in digestibly small units, you get to adapt. You adapt to the truth as it unfolds. When you're 25, you know Jack. When you're 45, you know a lot
more than Jack.
A lot more than Jack, but a lot less than you're gonna know.
Right.
And you've adapted little by little as reality smacks you across the face.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're making assumptions that are untrue, it'll smack you across the face harder than if you accept that you don't know. And so that's how people fortify themselves. That's how any organism adapts.
Right.
You take, the finches of the Galapagos. In 2 generations, their bill shape changed because the bugs they were eating were in different kinds of things. So, and the ones
that didn't change, stop eating. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
So
no, we are adaptable.
I'm big on Darwinian stuff, not only biologically and physiologically, but economically and everything else.
Yeah, we are adapting beings, and the ones who do
adapt, move, or die, the basic
right,
law
the
of
ones who are
biology.
able to sort of adapt to those circumstances tend to thrive, and the ones who don't
That's right.
eventually die. And so
That's right.
and so
Or find them their ways to my office.
right.
And I
Yeah.
help them adapt better.
Right. So I'm wondering though, with like we talked about being in the present with Euro, like can we just kind of keep weaning ourselves off this need for the terra firma, like that sort of like just live each day to the best that we can.
You'd have to dedicate your whole life to that. You'd have to.
But why don't you do that? Just dedicate your life to that. No,
because I'm too plugged into other things. Like, well,
I mean, those things can be part of your life right now, like your family in particular, right? So they're probably the most important thing in your life.
I'm in a place where I'm more liberated to do that.
Right.
If we're talking generally about a 20, 30, 40-year-old.
No, I'm talking about you right now.
Me?
Yeah.
Like, yes, I can for the first time in my life be the most selfish I've ever been in my life.
Right.
And that is
but
new
I'm sure
to
that will include other people, right? Because you love other people. So your selfishness will include other people.
Yes, yes. But if I come first or near the top, that's very unlike anything that I had been doing that I no longer need to do. Whatever that was in the service of, as far as I'm concerned, worked.
Mm-hmm.
My life worked.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I wouldn't change a fucking thing in my life of all the things that I could control. Not one thing. Not any of this, not nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a beautiful realization. Not a lot of people, I think.
I agree with you. I can't tell you how lucky I know myself to be.
Yeah. So I think in terms of just where we're going over the next several months, let's say, it's just this evolving, learning, adapting, like,
yes,
some of this stuff is going to resolve itself. Some of it is going to change to something else, right? Which may or may not be pleasant.
And
so
look at it as it's happening as best you can, and rejoice. Whoa, that sucked.
Yeah, that's
sort of.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
Now and there's also just no. I mean, the other thing is you would like to say, it's like random probabilities involved, And
thank you.
I think I told you about
that's everything.
A friend of my family.
Probability, everything.
Really wonderful man who just has been so great friends to my parents and to me, and has done good things with his life, and public service, and then recently got diagnosed with esophageal cancer, right?
That's
and it's like one. So there's no like, oh, I've done all this good stuff, and so not good stuff is not going to happen to me. No, I mean, esophageal cancer sucks, and it's and
well,
so,
nobody expects that. Well, unless you.
I don't know. I think some people do. Like they do go into why me? Why is this happening?
Well, yes.
And I'm a good person. Why is this happening to me? And it's like, and I just appreciate that we just don't know. That's the point that I'm trying to say. We don't know.
Nobody knows.
When the shit is going to happen.
It's a function.
What's going to happen.
It's a function.
And so how do we prepare ourselves for that?
Good luck.
But we can actually prepare ourselves because by really recognizing that, like with this, and I'm getting back again to you and us, it's an acceptance of that terra firma may never actually appear, may never actually come. And it may like have moments of like, oh, I'm stable for a while. I can do this now, and I can figure out. But then something else is going to happen. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely see what you mean. But I have to tell you, I understand your metaphor, but I don't know that. As I think about it, I don't know that I've ever expected to find a steady footing. I mean, my history began with okay. The world's going to kick you in the balls, losing.
Yeah, but even when you do, Norman, even when you find steady, you manage to sabotage it sometimes too, right? I mean, I mean, not in a bad way.
You
I'm just
make
saying,
choices
you
that
make
don't
choices-
work out.
right? Exactly. So it's like, this is what I think is so
But,
interesting about
don't
humans.
imply that my intention is to sabotage
No,
myself.
I don't think your intention is to sabotage. It's more, and I do this too. We all sort of make
We
these
make mistakes.
we make mistakes, or we make choices which are just like, wow, that
Stupid.
was stupid. Right? We make stupid choices, and that's
Hedonistic, stupid choices.
Yes, exactly.
I wouldn't change a fucking thing.
Right. Okay. I'm not saying you should, but my point is and that will disrupt our little nice apple cart
Yes.
that is just kind of rolling down the road.
Oh shit!
And then we decide,
Yeah.
hey, I'm gonna go through this flood or something because it seems like a good idea, and the apple cart falls.
Yeah.
Right.
Who do I have to apologize to tomorrow?
Right. Exactly. So I just think, if we just get okay with that whole thing,
Yes.
no matter what,
Yes, I
either
gotta tell
from
you.
external
I gotta
or
tell you,
internally,
Gregory,
shit is going to happen.
Gregory,
Yeah.
I learned the liberation of that from you. I learned, wow, I could tell this dude anything, and it's all okay because I'm just a human being.
Right.
I practiced that with you for the first time in my life. Uncensored. I've said this to you in different ways, but I'm announcing now that no matter what I do is okay. I'm a human being.
Right.
The darknesses in us all are universal. The darknesses in us all are universal.
Yes, that is totally true. We all have these darknesses, these proclivities, which don't fit into our persona.
There's nothing new under the sun, assholes.
And so I guess that's my point, is that this notion of how do we just go through this life with our internal stuff and our external stuff as available and aware as we possibly can. That's
it.
But
how? And I think there's no teaching how. It's like we've discussed. It's Socrates walking around talking, and if you learn from him, you learn from him. If you don't, you don't. But he's not teaching. He's not teaching. The Dalai Lama isn't teaching. You learn from him. But he's not. You're not taking notes. You're being, and you need to intend to have an openness about it.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I need to know more, and let me just be around this person.
Yeah.
And there are those of us that do that for a living, as unnatural as that is, the two hats you have to, at least two hats you have to wear. And those of us who are just gurus that you seek out. But most people live and die, I think, in pedestrian ways. Most people, most people are just at the frontier of needing to survive. So they don't have the luxury of an office like this and equipment to just talk about. But it's well, I don't want to. Obligation is too strong a word. It's a good deed for us to be trying to disseminate it, because we know this shit. No.
It starts to become who you are, basically. And
that's right. Right, and that's what you learn from. Socrates was Socrates. That's who he was. Oh, man, wait a minute. I fix my sandal. Okay, wait up.
I was reading something the other day about how, and again, I don't know this passage, but I guess there are some passages in the Bible about how Jesus would lament that people couldn't understand it, couldn't hear him, couldn't get that. No, I'm just living in this place, and you can live in this place too, but that actually frustrated him, and so it's like, and so you can love people and be frustrated by them too, so
oh
yeah, it's like, and I think that's the
But the more enlightened you are, the more accepting you are of whatever is.
Right. You can be accepting and still be like,
Yeah,
I would prefer people to understand
disappointed.
the good word. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
You have friends you love who are assholes sometimes and annoying sometimes, but you accept the whole ball of wax.
Right.
You love them or you don't love them.
Yeah.
The trick is to love everybody.
Trick is to love everybody.
I'm not there.
It's a practice. Notice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just notice when we're
It's
we're
like,
not
but don't forget, nobody expects that you're going to succeed at that. You know, that's in all the religious texts. The Talmud, for example, says you should aspire to be godlike.
Mm-hmm.
The Talmud knows in all of its infinite convoluted wisdom, you're never going to be godlike, but you need to conduct your life to endeavor to be, even though you're never going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that you need to try to love everybody, but there's no love in Donald Trump.
It's hard. He makes it very difficult.
Sorry, I've tried. I've turned the sound down and I've just felt sorry for him.
Yeah.
But no, I hate the motherfucker. Period.
Yeah. Well, it's the maliciousness that really gets you, I think. That's, if we would just.
It's the harm he's doing.
Yeah. So, I understand.
That's enough. Maybe we should stop it.
Yeah. Well, we can finish up here. So, Norman, would you like to say anything to our esteemed colleagues out there in the world before we close up today's session?
Colleagues?
Well, just, friends, people who might be actually, if you've made it this far, right, with us, is there some gesture or something you'd like to share as we
gesture? Yeah,
because we don't know, again, like the last one was, I don't know how long ago, we don't know when we're going to do this again, so I just thought it'd be nice.
Yeah, this occurs to me when you say gesture. Y'all are not in this alone. You have people around you that you know about, that you may not know about, to whom you can reach out, but you also have people like me who can professionally offer support and fortification and guidance. And there are good ones of us out there and not so good ones of us out there. But if you have any questions, you can call me for free. I don't charge for phone time. You can call me for free. But if you come see me on a consultation basis, we can discuss what's going on and I can guide you, whether or not that means you stay with me or we find some other path. Do that. I'm Norman R. Klein. I have a website, Norman Klein, and Klein is spelled Klein, phd.com. And my phone number, my direct cell number is 917-744-0100. And it's what I do, despite my shortening runway. You never know. You got anything?
Oh, yeah. So I just wanted to say, before we close out this session, that I love you and that I am deeply grateful for our friendship. And it is one of the greatest gifts in my life.
Wow. Coming from you, thinking of you as the person that I first met and seeing you out there with all those other people and people who I know when they're there, and when I'm in the days when I was practicing with you, they just wanted to get closer to you. To hear you say that to me makes me feel really special. Thank you.
You are special to me. You've been you are a true friend.
Yes. And together we have found out what that means a little more than we had known, I think.
No, you've helped me grow in so many ways.
Oh, man.
So grateful.
Yeah, so tell your friends.
Yeah, there's something good going on.
Why don't you tell them how to reach you?
Oh, you guys can find me. There's souljourneys.net is probably the easiest way to find me, and my email's on there as well. So check out my website, and we'll see you again soon, I hope.
Okay.
All right.
Peace out, babe.